Hi, my name's Cordy, and I'm desperate for you to buy my junk so I can get some Ugg boots to wear around the house and slippers, obviously. No, this is Nemo, by the way, Fenton's son. He's going to try to attack my face. But I did put up 7 tracks on Bandcamp, the heaviest stuff that you've seen me kind of playing over the last week or so. And I think Bandcamp are doing a thing today where I get all of the money if you do choose to purchase one of those, so that'd be nice for once. But yeah, I've started the process of putting up on Spotify and everywhere else, so you will be able to get it there eventually, but I don't actually get any money from that anyway, so that's literally just for you. Feel free, and yeah, thank you for stopping by. If you want to subscribe and like and stuff, and then I'm going to do a lesson on triads now. Cheers. So I was on Patreon. I have a Patreon, in case you weren't aware, where you can get my backing tracks and tabs and lessons and all that sort of stuff. And I put a shout out the other day because I've been doing this Alan Holdsworth chord thing on a Friday, and I said, is there anything else that you'd like me to sort of look into? And the answer came back essentially as triads. So we're going to do some more stuff on this as the ideas come to me, and maybe next week we'll do another triad lesson. Essentially this is going to be the overview and talking about some things, but I first of all, I've titled it The Problem with Triads. As I see it, let's just talk about these things. So a triad is essentially 3 notes, triad, and you can build them from each note of the major scale. So the way you do this, if you're not aware, you could probably just look this up somewhere else, an introduction to triads or something if you're not aware, but say we're in C major, the way you construct a triad is by jumping in thirds. So you go, skip that note, and you get note 3. So a triad, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you build it off of 1, 3 and 5. And so you may recognise that kind of sound from piano and that sort of thing, I guess. For instance, that's the way that Kate Nash, one of her tunes, does that. But it's essentially do that, you know, if you've got any familiarity with a keyboard, it's moving around a block shape. In the context of what we're talking about, oftentimes people say about hitting chord tones and the importance of triads. Now, here's my mild pushback on that. You know, you've asked me to talk about these triads, so here's my issue with triads, if you like. So I'm going to freeze the note C here. So if we're thinking about triads, we've got 3 available notes if we are targeting a triad, right? So we've got the root, the third, and the 5th. So, say you're wanting to play something against a C major, so a bass guitarist is playing a C potentially, and you're trying to outline the harmony of whatever happening is a C major. So if you're thinking in a triad way, you could be thinking, okay, I'll play the root, the C. You could be thinking, oh, I'll play the 5th, the G. Or you could be thinking, I'll play the 3rd. Now, realistically, only one of those notes actually tells you that that's a C major tonality, and that's the E. So this, to me, is the problem with triads. So that could be a C minor, and I could play a C. It could be a C minor, I could play a G. But unless I hit the flattened 3rd, there's nothing that tells me, in terms of harmonic information, that I'm playing over a C minor. So this for me is kind of important. So if someone's talking about hitting chord tones, to me, if you hit the root and the fifth, and those are your kind of main chord tones to aim for, in terms of actually harmonic and melodic information, I don't think those are particularly strong. Now that might seem a little bit controversial and a bit of a weird take, but that's just how I see it as a problem with just thinking in triad. In terms of thinking melodically and harmonically, there are other more useful notes to consider. So let's take that C again. Now you can think about chords in a few different ways, and triads and chords we can use kind of as an interchangeable term. And within the major scale, let's just play the C major scale, and we're going to harmonise in the diatonic triads. So off of the first note we get C major, off of the second note of the scale we get D minor, off of the third note we get E minor, off of the fourth note we get F major, off of the fifth note we get G major, off of the sixth note we get an A minor, and then a B diminished to finish things off. So why does that matter? So if we were to play a C triad, an F triad, or a G triad, realistically those chords could come from any of those keys. So the F major also contains a C major, or the G major also contains a C major. So it's only when you play them all together that you actually outline that you're playing in C major. Now, one other thing that I could do to make it instantly apparent is to add one other note to those. You notice there was 3 major chords and 3 minor chords, and then 1 diminished chord. So although there's only 3 major triads, 3 minor triads in that major key and 1 diminished, you'll notice that they don't actually contain enough information to tell you what key they're in by themselves. So a C major triad could be at home in F major, it could be at home in G major, it could be at home in C major. You get the point, they can come from other places, so you'd have to add other extensions to give the full information of where that chord comes from, or pair it with another triad, if that makes sense. So things that you could do, so if we take an F major triad, the most obvious thing that I could do to add to that, to make it clear that that comes from C major, is to add the B natural to that, or the sharp 11, be the way that you describe it if you were thinking of the F as the root note. But obviously in an F major scale you'd have a B flat normally, whereas in a C major scale you would have a B natural, and that's a note that you could add to that triad where that F kind of belongs. So similarly with the D minor, if we add a B to that, that would be the 6 of the D minor. And that could be another way that we could differentiate between that being in a C major tonality or somewhere else. If you look at the A minor example, if we're going to take that, you wouldn't really be able to do that in the same way. You'd have an F in the top instead. That would be the 6 of the A minor here, because in C major you don't have an F sharp. So if you played those 2 chords together, they don't really work, whereas those kind of do. So if you see what I'm trying to get at, there's other notes other than the triad that kind of hold more weight in terms of determining whether that thing is sounding like you're in a key, if that makes sense. So this is why personally I would target thirds and sevenths more than I would target roots and fifths. The root technically doesn't give me any harmonic information, and the fifth is also ambiguous because you have the same fifth whether it's a minor or a major triad. So that aside, triads are still important and can be used for a bunch of different things. So if you're new to triads, one thing that you probably start off doing is to start to learn the various shapes of the triads around the neck. So you've got a C major triad here, so C, E, G. Learn your other triads based on the root position to start with. So you want to move this root onto the other string sets. So here's another, here's another, and here's another. So we've covered C major in root position on each of the strings. Then you could also think about inversions, so 1, 3, 5. The next logical thing might be 3, 5, 1. So, and do the same thing, move that around to move it around so that you're starting your triad from the E, the A, the D and the G string. That's probably step 1 or step 2 of learning these triad things. Then you could start from the fifth. So you've got 5, 1, 3 is the order for that. So here's one, here's another, here's another, and here's another. And really it would be worth doing that in every single key or for every single triad. So you could think about going in a circle of fifths. You could maybe go from C all the way, so you go C, G, D, A, E, etc. and round the circle of fifths, and that could take you quite a bit of time, but to learn all of those triad kind of shapes and where they happen across the guitar, that would be a really good exercise. And maybe as you're doing it you could say kind of root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, or then start again coming back up, so third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, third, fifth, root, and then third, fifth, root. These would be useful things to do. And then what you can also do is kind of use these to comp something, and I think I'm going to talk more about this on Sunday. I've been working on a tune called In a Sentimental Mood, and I'm going to think about it in D minor for now. So take your melody, and then what you're going to be trying to do once you've kind of got familiar with where the triads are and stuff, so obviously we just did that with a major triad, you also want to do that with the minor triad at least, and then you'll have enough kind of information to get you through a few tunes. So what you could think about doing is placing your nearest kind of triad that you're aiming for. So for the first chord I want a D minor, so here's a D minor in first inversion. I'm going to end here, so a G minor here is the chord I was looking for. So take your melody, and once you've learned that melody, take your triad, your nearest triad, and place it underneath your melody. So I need a G minor here, and then a D major, and then an A major, and then another D minor, and then a G major, and then that's kind of the process that you might want to start experimenting with. Keep it super simple to start with, and maybe slow it all down and figure it out and plan it out and write it. You could do that, but that's probably how I'd start to kind of get hold of these triad things. In this context I do think they're super useful, because you're placing them alongside the melody notes, that are actually happening. But yeah, those are some useful things to do. So this is kind of how I think about triads and how I think they're kind of useful. I think where triads are potentially missold is that they can be a key to kind of opening up super melodic phrases. The third, the 7 and the 9 are actually, I think, more appropriate to open up melodic playing. So triads can be super useful. Another thing you might want to consider doing is just using these triad structures to imply different things over different chords. So and then just one quick thing just to demonstrate how the third is kind of one of the more powerful notes that you can target. So let's take octaves. Then we could take fifths. And then we could take thirds. And I think one of those to me stands out as giving the most complete kind of harmonic information just with two notes, and I think that's what's so important about the third. And I think that's why the third for me is what I'm aiming for generally. That for me, the third or the 9 or the 7 for me are kind of the money notes. So that's my quick kind of introduction to triads, what I think they can do and also what I think they're not so good for. But hopefully that's vaguely useful and explains something. I'm not exactly sure what. But yeah, I'm going to do some more stuff on triads and we'll talk about them some more, and probably on Sunday try and put some more together with in a sentimental mood. Perhaps I'll try and write out a chord melody using just triads. We're going to need to use the diminished and augmented triads to do that successfully, but I guess that's the whole point of it. So thank you for stopping by. If this was at all interesting, you could like and subscribe, and thank you for watching. Cheers. Oh, there's a buy me a coffee link as well if you want to help prep the playing with some more coffee, but only do that if you can really afford to. Thank you for stopping by. Cheers.